Hi, welcome to JadeKind Gaming. My name is Adam, and today I'm going to be unboxing the Pathfinder map pack of camps and shelters. So, Paizo has their, they have their flip mats that I get a lot of, and occasionally I'll get these map packs, which are, she says the size, let me get it right, 5-inch by 8-inch tiles with, 1-inch grids. I think a lot of these are designed for, like, two of them to be paired together and make smaller areas. But yeah, so we have the map pack. And the back shows little images of what's on there, but let's take a real look at what's inside. And they come in the nifty little box here. So you have somewhere to store them. And it's labeled on the side, which I've started finding useful for just keeping it on the shelf and being able to reference it really quickly. Okay. And now, the one thing with these that I always think, gee, I wish they'd have done something different, is the backs are just blank. Even if they just have, like, the same background kind of color, like the grass texture with the grid on the back of it or something, even if it was something very simple, I just wish that we would be able to use the back. But alas, they're single-sided. So let's see. So we get the one from the actual cover of the box. Little camping area, 5 sleeping bags around a fire, got a little stack of chopped wood, something roasting, basic little camp setup, which could go on its own or could be placed next to, or they could be used either one on their own with this one, definitely. The other grassy one we have here, which has little sort of temporary shelters set up next to a fire. Almost feels like there are two completely separate ones because they do each have their own fire, but two sort of grassy area campsites, just sort of out in the field. So that's a pretty standard, camping situation that players find themselves in, is just on overland travel, having a camp. And even if you just have it where it's mostly a clearing, and so you just use a blank mat, but you have this to set in the middle to give the basic overlay of their camp in the middle and where they all start. Just make it a little easy for, essentially, a lot of these being camps are when the players are attacked while they're trying to, do their long rest kind of thing. So, here we go. Okay, so this one is very much designed to go together. This one here, and I mean, it doesn't have to be. You could have this be some other cave and some other cave here, but it very much feels like, okay, this will work together to give it the idea of you have a little entrance into a little cave, and maybe there's a little area, maybe just a little small room back here, or maybe this is the entrance into a larger cave, and the players are camping in the mouth of the cave before adventuring in or on their way out, or whatever it may be. Certainly another sort of area where they'll have to camp. And you get a little stack of, equipment there, bedrolls all around a little fire. But yeah, whether it's an actual cave or whether this is a little bit in a canyon, even, where it's open to the sky and they've just found a wide enough area while traveling to camp here. And another little camp area. This one is definitely the Paizo's common cave use. There's a lot of, some of their things that they use over and over, and this sort of cave look is one of them. So this would match well with some of their other caves. Again, 5 sleeping bags is, I'm guessing, what they're going to do in all of these at this point. Is the assumption of a 5-player party, which I've certainly had a fair amount of time. Although recently I've been doing 3 players because that's what's easy to film in my current situation. All the same, I don't think it would devastate you if you have a extra sleeping bag or 2 on the mat. It gets the idea across. Your players would make a joke about it, and you'd move on. But yeah, so we have the actual cave here, and whether this is a mouth into a little cave off the side of a mountain, or whether they're trekking through some massive cave system and they have to set up camp at night. Oh, I just noticed even, there's a little water source right there off to the side, so the players have somewhere to get, hopefully, fresh water, or perhaps it leads somewhere deeper and something creeps out in the night. But that could be even a second entrance other than the obvious one for them to guard there. But yeah, so we have our cave campsite. Haha, I could beat the system and only use this half of it. Draw the rest of the fire and call it a day. But again, 5 sleeping bags around a campfire in what appears to be a desert, lit up as if it's day. So why do they have that fire? Anyways, ultimately, you're probably going to assume it's night, and it probably looks like day because that's what the rest of their desert, maps and such look like. So it'll blend in. So yeah, definitely the best thing to do. And it looks like a little bit of ruins, and they're just sort of in a little outcrop near a hill or cliff kind of area. They found a little probably shelter from some of the sandstorms and had to camp out trekking the desert. Okay. Here's a little different. Again, designed for 2 to go together. And it looks like they have a campfire up on a little rock. And, I mean, is it the idea that they each have little private rooms? And that each of these is like a little cavern into a small little cave where each of them is taking refuge? I'm not really sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this one, actually. I'll say that. Not a huge fan. I'm not sure the purpose, although it's the kind of thing maybe if... trying to think how to use it. Perhaps the idea being the players did each camp and find little spots for where they'd camp, and they'd each come out and the battle would happen here outside of their area. Unlike some of the others that feel like you're just going to have those to pull out and utilize, like, your players are going to camp in a, in a canyon, in a field, in a cave, or if you have a desert campaign, in the desert. This feels like more of an environment that is more specifically designed, and that basically you're going to have to story this in to use this rather than the players just happen to camp here. But I mean, certainly still usable, but not just the kind of thing that's just going to come up on its own. Alright, so we get a... Okay. I like how they did this, because this leaves either of these usable on their own. Just sort of for mid-jungle, or you could, of course, combine them. You have just sort of a jungle trail where they've set up a fire. Obviously, with that, I don't have... the sleeping bags aren't there, but if you need one where it doesn't have 5 sleeping bags, that's easier. And it's in a little bit of a ruin here, and this section of jungle doesn't actually have the ruins, although obviously if you put it right next to it, it works together and looks like it's right beside the ruins. I mean, it lines up perfectly there. And you have them with their sleeping bags around the supplies, with the campfire off to the side, where they probably keep cooking and such. I almost wonder... No, the ruin cuts off. I was like, does it work on both sides? No. But, so, essentially you have a little jungle area, which if you need it near ruins, you have this to add with it. If you don't want ruins or don't want a campfire, you can just use this one. So either of them works individually, or as I said as well, for a little jungle campsite. A nice little dungeon area with, I like that, overflowing fountain into some sort of crevice. That's a dangerous thing to camp by. You may have... Hold on a minute. Oh! I'm so happy. They actually have barricaded the door. That's like boards and poles and everything. The door has been barricaded. That feels like such a real... They know who plays this game. They know how this game gets played. You barricade that door if you're having to camp in a dungeon. This is the... We got stuck in a large dungeon and we had to stay overnight. Crud. They barricaded the door. That's a little risky, but no, they probably investigated it and think it's pretty safe. They may still, of course, have a watch, and not just trust the barricade, but I think they're relatively safe. Nothing too big can get out of there. And we have a little camp in the middle of a dungeon. which, again, a real thing where that's just going to come up. Players have to do that, and that is such a real situation where it's useful to have this because there's such a good chance that something is going to attack them in the night. This one is set up. Oh, I was going to say for 4, but really it's for 8 because those are bunk beds. But it makes more sense. This is clearly a set house. Just a little building out in the fields. But of course you can line it up near other tiles and things where maybe it's closer to some other buildings. Maybe it's a little rented house besides a farmhouse that the players rented out, or a little inn with a series of encampments where people are renting individual little buildings for groups, and there actually are 8 stools, so it's taking advantage of the idea that there could be 8 people staying in here. And I've actually had a campaign with 9 players. I think is the most I've done. So that can definitely happen. It's got a little fireplace, just enough space to to sit and plan, rest. I mean, heck, that could even be, if the players decide we want a set base and they end up wanting to build something, but they're on a budget, this would be almost the kind of thing where they build a permanent structure for themselves. So we have that. Is this the final? Yeah, I think this is the final. Which way does it go? I think more, probably this way. Or maybe they're just separate. But, no, it doesn't, because this is the fire in the middle. Okay. So you get this one, and technically it could go either. But you have a little campfire, but not really a campfire, more of a set fire in some sort of structure here in the city with, just beds lying in the alley. Ooh, that's... they have stacked up barrels over here and here. So really this is the only unblocked entrance. But they're just sort of camping here in a back alley. That's players in a dangerous situation. Not that I haven't had... Well, I haven't had a whole party do it, but I've definitely had individual players that's what they do, because they are saving their money. They are not paying that's several copper to the inn. So I mean, I've certainly had it be the case, but that's sort of almost definitely a situation where there's a good chance for them to fall under attack while camping, so useful to have a map for. But yeah, and again, this one, because of the way it's split, this one has 3 sleeping bags over here and just 2 over here, so another one that's easier to split if you need less sleeping bags. So yeah, fun. And it does show on the front 5 sleeping bags, and that is the most common number. We have the one with 8. And like I said, it's like, yeah, the players will joke about it if you don't have 5 players. I mean, if you have 6 or something, it's easy enough to get their wet, dry, and permanent marker erasable. Permanent markers are a little more of a hassle, but they say it works. I've never tested it, but at least wet and dry work. Just use a wet erase marker, vis-a-vis, and you can draw on. Here's where the extra sleeping bag is if you have more players. If you have less, oh well, they'll deal. But it is definitely the kind of thing for your players camp overnight. Do they? Do they get attacked? Let's make it really easy to, bring this out and have it. Especially because if your players camp and you start drawing their campsite on like a map, they get time where, okay, something's going down. All of a sudden you can bring a lot more speed to it if all of a sudden you just sort of pull out, here's your campsite, here's the bad guys, you're under attack, you're the only one awake, what do you do? If you're having to draw it, they start talking and they start making plans together, even though really likely only one of them's awake at this time. They still start planning together. So it's sort of that idea of almost you can make one person, whoever's on watch, make the nervous decision of how they alert people, what do they do. almost that idea of if you have to set it up ahead of time, then, you know, if you have it like pre-drawn or something, players look at that and say, well, we do double watch tonight. We're feeling a little nervous about this area. And you're only nervous about the area because I drew it out for combat. So, some interesting things, and yeah, the kind of thing that's nice to have just to quickly pull out, put down, and be able to get combat started if you attack your players at night while they're trying to get their long rest in. Those fools. But yeah, so useful. A couple of them are kind of weird, but for the most part, pretty, just generally useful tools to be able to hinder your players while they're at their most vulnerable. Anyways, thank you for watching. I'll link below where you can find this if you want to get it online. Check it out. Have a great day. Bye.